Good afternoon to all my co-panelists and participants of this webinar from all over the world. Before I introduce both the eminent speakers and the panelists of the session, I would like to give a context of why and how this session is organized. This session is organized in association with MIT Innovation Incubator as well as the UNOS Social Business Center that we have at MIT University, Rajasthan. Now, this center has been set up in association with the movement of Professor Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate, who has visited us, and he has been awarded with our honorary doctorate also. And Professor Yunus needs no introduction, and he is the pioneer of social business concept in the world. And to promote and create awareness about this concept, we have set up this center at MIT University, Rajasthan. Now, 28th of June happens to be the birthday of Professor Muhammad Yunus, and the day is celebrated as a social business day. And this year, in fact, the Social Business Day has expanded into Social Business Week, where world over events are being organized right from today, 26th to till 28th evening, where a lot of discussion sessions, virtual webinars, as well as conferences are being organized. Primarily, the event this time is driven from Germany. And in morning, we had our session of Asia cluster of the Yunus Social Business Center, and where there were participants from Nepal, Bangladesh. I represented the MIT University Centers from India and many other partner institutions who are part of the Yunus Social Business Centers all over the world. So that's the reason that we are here today. And in line of the activities that we are having as part of the Social Business Day, which in fact has become like a social business week. And I'm sure over a period of time, the movement will pick up the pace, where each and every day will be celebrated as a social business day, where each and every entrepreneur or business owner will think about starting a business which is based on the philosophy of non-loss, non-dividend company with a social objective. And that's what the basic premise of a social business as proposed by Professor Yunus is. At the same time, we also want to have more and more businesses that help to fulfill the dream of Professor Yunus, who talks about a world with three zeros. He talks about zero poverty, he talks about zero unemployment, and he talks about zero carbon emission. And if we combine all these three aspects, there is a possibility to create a lot of business ventures that will not only help to remove the poverty, but create employment for huge masses, and that too at a micro or the grassroots level. So with that context, we have organized this session on the theme, which is role of social entrepreneurship in rebuilding the economy. We all know that the economy has faced a lot of challenges in the last few months in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, and it becomes imperative for all the management professionals and the business owners all over the world to think and deliberate that how they can rebuild their own businesses, how they can rebuild the entire ecosystem, and how we can rebuild the economy. So with that objective, we have organized this session today, and we have a very eminent panel of speakers today, and I'm going to introduce both of them first. We have with us Professor Azhar Kazmi, and person of his stature again needs no introduction, but just to keep up with the tradition, let me briefly introduce Professor Kazmi. He graduated in mechanical engineering from Birla Institute of Technology and Science, BITS Pilani. Then he did his MBA from our own Podar Institute of Management, Jaipur. Then he has received professional diplomas in training and development and in distance education. After gaining industrial experience in engineering and management, Professor Kazmi joined academia and has served Kurukshetra University, Ajmer University, where he was the founder director of School of Management and Information Studies and Dean of Faculty of Management. He has also worked at Aligarh Muslim University. He has worked after completing a 5-year professional assignment at the International Islamic University, Malaysia at Kuala Lumpur. He is now teaching as a visiting professor in management at King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, Saudi Arabia. Professor Kazmi has several publications to his credit, and the most prominent ones are his books in the area of strategic management, which was also awarded as the best management book in the year 1994. He has another book which is on business responsibility, and it is his area of interest, which made us very, very interested in listening to him today, that what he has to say about the social entrepreneurship and role of social entrepreneurship, role of micro enterprises, as well as role of corporates towards the society in rebuilding the economy. So with this, I welcome Professor Kazmi to the session. I'm also pleased to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Dilnawaz Khan. Mr. Dilnawaz Khan has 12 plus years of experience. He's a founder at Code Design Labs and PowerDeck. He has been a serial entrepreneur, as we say in the world of entrepreneurship, started many businesses, nurtured many businesses, and now he also acts as a mentor for various incubation centers and startups. He's very popular with the students with his TEDx talks and various seminars and conferences where he has spoken in the past. Mr. Dilnawaz has also been associated with the CIIE and Ahmedabad. He has been associated with Startup Oasis, and he has been in microfinance sector with one of the organization where he worked with. So he also carries a rich experience. That is it about both the eminent speakers. Before I pass on the baton to the speakers to share their views, I would like to share a small PPT about the Yunus Social Business Center and the activities that we have done in last 1 year, and then we will start with the discussion through our experts. So I'll just need a go ahead, Rakesh. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. The presentation is visible.
The presentation, right. Let me just put it on the full show mode. And it's a brief overview of the activities that our Yunus Social Business Center has carried out in last 1 year. So the model of YSBC, and especially at MIT University, is basically they work on 3 areas. One is research, one is teaching, and the other one is innovation. And all these 3 things are very, very important to create an ecosystem of social businesses. Here, I would like to put a word of caution. There is a slight difference when we talk about social entrepreneurship and social business as per Professor Muhammad Yunus, because he believes that social entrepreneurship still to some extent has that profit motive involved. But when he talks about the social business, his idea of social business is that where the investor will not drop any money more than what the person has invested, but the company or the business will definitely make profit, but those profits will again be roped in the business to expand the business so that the social objective with which the business is set up is achieved. So that's the slight difference, but I believe both the dimensions of social entrepreneurship or the social enterprise and the social business ultimately lead to the outcome, which is the betterment of the society or the betterment of the humanity in general. So talking about the activities or the research initiatives, We primarily work in terms of identifying employment generating and wealth generating avenues in rural areas across the regions of Rajasthan. We try to identify the skills and competencies that are required. We are trying to identify the child labor problems of the selected villages and provide a solution for that. We disseminate knowledge of various government programs aimed at uplifting rural poor. So these are some of the initiatives which we have taken. In terms of our current activities, we have done training programs in association with NABARD, NGO, and farmer producer organization in Nagaur. A similar training was conducted at AUR also. I'm so glad to share that we have adopted 5 villages as part of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, and we have conducted a pilot study already where we have identified some communities, especially the Bunkar communities, where they had some basic tailoring skills. And now we are going to work along with our fashion technology department to help them improve their skill and provide them the business know-how so that they can start their own micro enterprises. We are also collaborating with the Center for Microfinance, Jaipur, and NABARD. We also offer an MBA, one course on social banking and microfinance in our MBA program. And they do offer a specialization on rural management and agribusiness management in our MBA program. So these are some of the activities where YSBC is involved. These are some of the glimpses of activities we did during last 1 year. All these activities are going to be presented at the Golden Hour that will be organized on 28th as part of the Yunus Center from Germany. We also have a Yunus Business Social Business Center at our Gurgaon, and there have been certain activities in terms of developing low-cost technological solutions and providing entrepreneurial support to the rural youth. We are working on some solar-related power projects. We are working on these Hunar Se Rozgar scheme through our Gurgaon chapter. And that's how we are trying to do our bit through the Yunus Business Center. So that's it from my side as far as the context and the background of this session is concerned. And I would like to now pass on the session to Professor Azhar Kazmi to get his words of wisdom on the theme. Professor Kazmi, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Amit. First, let me confirm, are you able to hear me and see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So thank you, Dr. Amit, for inviting me to this panel discussion based at Jaipur. Though we are not able to come to India at this time, but at least I'm happy virtually, at least I'm there. I'm stuck up here in Saudi Arabia. This is afternoon, about 1:45 p.m. here. Temperature outside is 41 degree. I think Jaipur is much better. It's 35 or 36 right now. I believe that there are a lot of students, as I can see their names as participants and some faculty members. It's a pleasure to speak to Amity students. I think this is the third time I'm speaking to the Amity students, and it has always been a very good experience for me. Last time, I think just a couple of weeks back, I was speaking at an Amity Delhi seminar. Delhi or Gurgaon? Yeah, Gurgaon seminar. There also it was quite interesting and quite participative and had some good questions. I hope today's panel discussion would also be fruitful. So let me now come to the topic. The topic is very wisely chosen, because we are talking about the role of social entrepreneurship in reinvigorating the business. So at least this shows that there is hope. So first of all, let me talk about what happens. Right now we are in the midst of this disease outbreak, COVID-19 disease outbreak. Now, one thing is sure that based on the past experience that we have had of dealing with disease outbreaks, even more severe pandemics and endemics, and catastrophes, natural catastrophes, and so on. But the human beings have been through all these adversities, and they have come out of this. And then a phase of rebuilding that follows. So I think the shoots are already there of rebuilding, and soon we will have some more concrete ideas as well as concrete plans for rebuilding. Now, all the stakeholders, they would be playing a role in this rebuilding, be they businesses, the government, the society, the civil society, and the social institutions. I have been working more since the last about 4 months. I have been more working on the responses of the business, in this rebuilding. So I grabbed at the opportunity to be a part of a panel which would discuss the role of a different thing apart from business, social entrepreneurship in rebuilding the economy. Rebuilding the economy, we would certainly rebuild the economy, and we would have to rebuild some of the institutions that have been hurt in the process, and then we are also going through a process of really finding out what have been the shortcomings in some of our systems, administrative systems, and then the health system, for example, and so on. So I think we will have a good opportunity to look at these, because every upheaval of this sort, it does a lot of damage. The estimates are that the world economy has already been affected to the tune of $12 trillion, and that's a huge amount. And more is expected if this thing continues for another quarter. I think the losses to the world economy are going to go up further. But anyway, what has happened is that I think even at least in terms of the death toll that this disease outbreak is taking, it's not as serious as human beings have faced some of the pandemics that we have faced in the past. So we will be getting through this, and we will be rebuilding our economy, our institutions, our businesses, and our society. So first of all, I'd like to have some elementary points for the benefit of the students who are here, and talk about some of the obvious things which are there in terms of what social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurship does. So one is that social entrepreneurship has been aimed at generating livelihoods. And livelihood is one thing that has been hurt very badly, because of this COVID impact. And not to forget that our economy was already in dire straits. The demonetization of 2017 was equally, if not more devastating than the COVID itself. So we have had a big impact on the livelihood of people, especially those people who are in small businesses, unorganized labor, and cottage industries and micro industries and so on. So livelihoods have been affected a lot. Now, social entrepreneurship have always created organizations that provide work to people and across different sectors, so they are able to generate employment, and they have a lot of potential of building sustainable livelihoods, and rebuilding the economy. Another thing is that many of the social entrepreneurs that we have seen, especially the younger ones we have seen, they have been quite conscious of preserving natural resources, talking about climate change and certain other aspects of environmental sustainability. Now this is very useful in rebuilding the economy on firm footing, because increasing availability of resources, providing better work and livelihood to people, especially in sectors like agriculture, for example. So the probability of improving the quality of life and generating better output for the market is always there from this second point of view of natural resources. Then we think of many sectors that have received the benefit of social entrepreneurship. And among them, we have the favorites, education, health, and energy, and so on. So they have, like social entrepreneurship, have been working in sectors like education for a more sustainable future. Creating a more independent future workforce or aware citizenry that could be of great value in the coming future. Maybe looking at factors in the Human Development Index and so on. Then, specifically in the context of this COVID environment, social organizations work with those who are marginalized. So when we think of rebuilding the economy, we would certainly think of those people who form a large part of the economy, contribute to it, thus working and upliftment of the migrants, for example. I don't know why they're called migrants, but yes, of course, within the country, they are migrants. And then we have agricultural laborers, factory workers, artisans, and so on. So they would contribute largely to rebuilding economy. And then we shouldn't forget this health sector, So maybe better health facilities. So some enterprises, social enterprises working with providing access to health across the different geographies, improvement or being able to reach people, especially those whom the government organizations sometimes are not able to or they cannot. So these are also potential areas of social entrepreneurship. And of course, one thing we shouldn't forget it. Of course, I shouldn't be branded as anti-national if I say this, but some social organizations can also help in keeping the government under check and toes. Collect data, form some sort of accountability mechanisms, and understanding the needs of the people, and in a positive way, providing feedback to the government organization. And because there are any number of well-meaning people in the government bureaucracy who are also interested in dealing with the rebuilding of economy, and therefore social entrepreneurs and social organizations as well as social businesses, they could provide good linkage from the grassroots level to the policy making apparatus and also to the implementation agencies which are there working on the ground. So I think these are some of the elementary ideas that I think the students should be aware of. Now, so far as social entrepreneurs are there addressing again the student, I think you understand that the social entrepreneurs, like any other entrepreneur, they basically identify opportunities and gaps in the market. Now, remember, market is not in the usual sense of the commercial markets that we normally talk about. So when we develop innovative solutions, we rather call them solutions rather than products. So solutions and services to address those problems, and then we use the entrepreneurial strategies to build and scale these ventures. So this scaling up is extremely important in the case of social entrepreneurship, because many of the ideas that are worked upon, at least in the initial stages, they are worked upon at small scale, and then the big question of scaling up is there. So of course, many of the ideas, they don't work out just because they cannot be scaled up. So scaling is also important, and any one of you who works in this area should be very careful that then when you're working on the idea, as you are working on the idea, I think simultaneously one has to also think on the scaling up of this. Now, I was just looking to some sources before I came here to talk to you, and I came across a report called 2 Decades of Impact, and this was presented by the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, and it was released in the recent Davos meeting of the World Economic Forum. And that had some very positive news about India and Indian social entrepreneurs. That it placed India at the top, in terms of the social entrepreneurs that are working around the world. And among these, the highest number was from India. So no wonder India has a lot of potential. And mind you, these entrepreneurs that Schwab Foundation was talking about, working in different countries. I think I don't recall the number of countries, maybe more than 60 countries around the world. So they have disbursed loans worth $6.7 billion or value of products and services, improved lives of more than 62 million people in 190 countries. And India is the topmost country in terms of their presence. So that's very heartening for us. And these organizations have also worked on the natural resources, as I told you about sustainability, and they have helped mitigate more than 190 million tons of carbon dioxide and improved education for more than 226 million children and youth. So that's what, these are very encouraging figures, and that also shows the potential of the social entrepreneurship which we can look at, So these are the things that came to my mind while I was mulling over the topic that Dr. Amit had provided to me just yesterday. So what I find is, of course, not my area is not social entrepreneurship. In recent years, I have been working more on the area of business responsibility, where we also published a book titled Business Responsibility. It's published by Cengage Learning. And this book I have written especially for the students of management and allied subjects, so that these students can have a comprehensive idea of what different areas that businesses have to play a role in terms of their social responsibility. As we know that businesses have a lot of stakeholders, and they have even responsibilities, and these are economic responsibilities, and then the social responsibilities, and then the environmental responsibilities. Mind you, social entrepreneurs also have a similar set of responsibilities to work on, and social entrepreneurs would also have to be economically responsible. They cannot, of course, as pointed out by Dr. Amit in the beginning, that Muhammad Yunus, he differentiates. In fact, as he was talking, I recalled Muhammad Yunus was there in our university here in Saudi Arabia, I think a few years back, where he was invited for a university seminar. He delivered it. There also he made some points. And I think even in his acceptance speech of the Nobel Prize, he also mentioned about the zero poverty concept, which is a very, very, very idealistic and worth achieving concept, And one of the Millennium Goals also relate to reduction of poverty and ultimately elimination of poverty from the world. And as I was saying, social entrepreneurs also have to play an economic role to themselves, first to sustain themselves so that they can go on, and second then to the social responsibility, which obviously they play, but they also have to be conscious of the environmental responsibilities. Now, fortunately, we have a lots of young people, and we keep hearing about, and some of them make good news, like people like, and I think many of the young students in Amity would be motivated by the stories that are there of Urvashi Sahani, for example, who worked in the area of education. And then we have those examples of, I'm recalling that example of that boy from Patna. I think he worked in the area of, what was his name? I think Karthik, no. Yeah, Sharad Vivek Sagar, Sharad Vivek Sagar. So he was working as a social entrepreneur. He was working in the area of education. He founded Dexterity Global at the tender age of 16, and he has provided opportunity for 1.2 million students. So we have we do have Indian Idol, so in these areas, and I think Karthik Narala Sethi, who worked in the area of, who dropped out of the judges, dropouts seem to do very well in life generally, Of course, don't take it literally. And he worked in the area of blood donation. And this young girl, Riya Sharma, for example, she worked in the area of acid for the acid victims, and so on. So we have a lot of very motivating stories around us. And India is a good setting for social entrepreneurship. So I think uh, uh, this panel discussion, Dr. Amit, is very timely in the sense that we are at the cusp of maybe, hopefully, then we might be reaching the peak very soon, and then we'll be more seriously thinking about the rebuilding. More determinedly, we'll be thinking about rebuilding the economy. And I think many of these ideas could be taken up by social entrepreneurs as well. So I think that's all I would like to say, and would now like to hear what Dilnawaz Khan Sahab has to say on the issue. Back to Dr. Amit.
Thank you so much, Professor Kazmi. Very pertinent points made by you, and definitely, as you shared, that social entrepreneurship is something where youngsters have a lot to do, and they can do that. And over a period of time, even I observe that many of these students are very keen to work for the society, to look at businesses where they can help people, in terms of providing solutions to their problems. In fact, at our MET Innovation Incubator, the incubation center of MET University, which we started last year, and now in next 1 year, we are looking at incubating around 20 startups. And I'll be very happy if at least 25 to 30% of these startups are in social domain, social entrepreneurship side or social business side. Because student-led social businesses have a lot of advantages and potential. Number one is that, let's say when the students are doing it along with their studies, they need not to worry much about the profit and the wealth creation part of that business. It provides them an experience, it helps them to solve certain problems, and at the same time start something of their own. So there is a lot of potential. So we have also come up with an idea that as part of this innovation incubator, now we will have a social business incubator also, where we will try to nurture the talent from amongst the youth, from amongst the students, and help them start some businesses on the social dimensions specifically. And since most of these social enterprises, they are more towards the micro enterprise side or MSME sides, it is even more easy for students to do it, and they can go and work at the grassroots level. So thank you so much. It was a wonderful address. We'll take a few questions also in the end, but now we'd like to listen to Mr. Dilnawaz Khan. Over to you, Dilnawaz.
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for the panel, sir. And I have a small presentation to showcase all of you, just to kind of, make sure that I'm able to maintain the flow and everything. So am I audible clearly to all of you guys? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So as as you have mentioned very clearly that today's topic is role of social entrepreneurship in rebuilding economy. And thanks a lot for such a nice introduction. Although my majority of experience falls under technology, SaaS companies, and more of web companies like that, and which I'll briefly speak about as well. As I said, thanks a lot for inviting me to the panel. And I think it's a fantastic topic, fantastic panel, and I'm delighted and I'm honored to be speaking on, number one, this great occasion, and also to such a dynamic panel, somebody like Professor Azhar Kazmi and you, and Amit sir has always been really very kind and humble. So thanks a lot for inviting me once again. So before I jump into the topic for today, I'll very quickly give you an introduction of mine, and I also want to kind of quickly speak that what makes me, or what I've learned during my journey of entrepreneurship, and what makes me somebody or a voice to speak about social entrepreneurship, right? So it's been roughly 12 years for me into the industry, where I've run multiple businesses across design, technology, and incubation space. I've been one of the very, very active players into the startup incubation space as well. I started my journey when I started my first company back in 2008, which was Valesco. Then I moved on to working with Startup Oasis back in 2013. I was a part of CIA team. I was one of the initial team members of Startup Oasis, which was one of the first technology business incubators in across the country. And then later on, I started another company in 2016 with my co-founder, CodeDesign Labs. And I think I have a small case study about CodeDesign Labs as well to speak about today, which I think will give a lot of perspective and a lot of insights at how technology can also impact all of us in creating social impact per se, right? So I have a small case study to talk about that as well. And then in 2018, I started another company, which was PowerDeck. And I would want to quickly give you a glimpse of what PowerDeck does. So we work today, basically we help startups very deeply. My full-time job is to work with startups day in, day out. And I work with them in creating pitch decks. I work with them in raising funds. And I work with almost all the 25 top business incubators across the country, whether you talk about NASSCOM, CI, Nexus, name a few of them and work with them. And as I said, the major role is to work with them, train their entrepreneurs, nurture their entrepreneurs, and help them become more fundable. But my exposure to social entrepreneurship, and this is what I want to specifically talk about, started back when I started my journey into the incubation space back in 2013. So my first, interaction or learning, or there's a word called SOCENT, which is very common and familiar when we talk about social enterprise and social impact. And the first time I heard this word was back in 2013 when we picked up this project with GIZ, which is a German government economy body, and we're trying to do a capacity building workshop for incubators and social impact enterprises. And then, of course, during the journey, I did a few programs as partners with WillGrow, which is one of the biggest social impact, social incubator in the country. And then I spent quite a major time with Unitas Ventures, which was back then called as Unitas Seed Fund. And my major job was to, as a consultant back there, my major job was to scout for impact startups. And I think these 4 years roughly gave me enough exposure in terms of understanding how important and impactful social entrepreneurship is on the ground, and how as an entrepreneur, you can really not just make money for yourself, but create a bigger impact in society out there, and create a lot of value for people out there, which of course I'll speak about in a few minutes in detail. So these 3-4 areas of exposure gave me enough understanding in terms of my understanding of social entrepreneurship, I have to put that way. So before as a lot of students are listening to us, and just to kind of give them a quick introduction to what social entrepreneurship is, what social impact is, and how I see social entrepreneurship and social impact as an entrepreneur, especially not being a social entrepreneur, is I see the social entrepreneurship that it's primarily an approach by an individual or a group or a couple of people or company, where they're able to develop, fund, and implement solutions for social, cultural, and environmental issues. And I believe it is very, very important to understand this broad spectrum of solutions at a social, cultural, environmental level, because social entrepreneurship changes a lot with the organization, and definition changes a lot. I think, Professor Amit and Professor Kazmi have already spoken a bit about that as well earlier, right? That even Professor Yunus have a different definition of social enterprise, right? So even if you talk about WillGrow, or you talk about GIZ, or you talk about, organization like Unitas Ventures, right? Right, all of them have a very different philosophy and a different thesis. So therefore, these and to my surprise, there's no one standard definition to social entrepreneurship till date, and which is fine. I think because every time you're able to create an impact on the society at large, I think for me that counts as social entrepreneurship, right? So in general, wherein for a for-profit business typically uses a performance matrix or a business matrix like a profit or revenue or a stock price to kind of measure the success or failure, a social entrepreneur typically looks at the return to the society and social impact. And I think the one thing that I want to kind of put here in as a key word, and want you to retain through this entire conversation, and want you to kind of take away from this entire conversation, should be the word social impact. That from today or tomorrow, or maybe once, whenever you become an entrepreneur in your life, are you creating any sort of a social impact via your business? Because if you're not able to do that, I think the bottom, you're not able to create, you're not basically fulfilling the purpose, right? That is how I see it, at least as an entrepreneur. So uh, uh, any community project, whether it is non-profit organization, whether it is a cooperative, social enterprise, social purpose business, foundations run by non-profits, all of them can also fall into social enterprise. But I typically personally do not see charity or philanthropy or CSR as a social enterprise, right? So why, and I want to now take a quick pause and talk about this particular concept, where I have spoken with a lot of my fellow entrepreneurs, fellow colleagues, and also a lot of social entrepreneurs, which I say that if the problem of the country, and this is the need of the hour that I'm talking about, if the problem of the country would have been solved by an NGO or by charity, right? We would have been able to solve all the problems till now. So charity model, philanthropy model, although does the purpose, but you still need social enterprises or for-profit social enterprises to work on the ground, so that there's a sustainable model. So if you look at all these terms very recently, whether it is social enterprise or social impact or sustainability or localization, or for that matter, vocal for local, all of these things have come into kind of, we have started talking about all these terms, and I think it's a great time to go out there and build a social enterprise, or at least an enterprise, or at least a business that creates a social impact. So one thing that I want to leave you with is that, of course, make sure that you're doing something which leaves a social impact. Second is the NGO model is not a social enterprise model. So if any of you think that you'll be starting an NGO tomorrow, or you'll be starting a self-help group tomorrow, that will not serve the purpose. I believe a social enterprise or a for-profit social enterprise is something which brings in a sustainable model, which makes the organization stay there for a longer period of time, should be the future ahead of the way ahead. And this is the reason why I want to talk about the social enterprises. So here I want to talk very quickly about our story at CoDesign Labs, who we are and what we do, and how we were able to create social impact while our journey of building this company. So as I said, and I want to kind of pause here on this slide and then talk about the story, because it's a very interesting slide. So as I said, I am a techie at heart. I'm a hardcore engineer. I'm a technology guy. And I started CoDesign Labs like almost 4 or 5 years ago with my co-founder, Neha. Neha happens to be the CEO of this company, and therefore we say it's a woman-led company. And we even at current time, even if we talk about whether we talk about full-time employees or even the contractual workers or freelancers we work with, we are a woman majority company. So how did this happen? We were never ever trying to build a company which was women focused or women led or things like that. But one thing we always wanted to do, and this is where the interesting part is, so what, as an entrepreneur, the problem I was trying to solve was that I thought that why can't a company in a tier 2 or a tier 3 or a tier 4 that is in a small town can have access to high quality technology, technology professionals. So we have seen the problem in the country that if you look at the technology scenario in the country, all the talent which is there in the country either moves out to the international, moves to the US or the Europe and all those countries, or even if you look at the scenario internally, the technical talent moves to Delhi, Bombay, Pune, Chennai, Hyderabad, Gurgaon, all these areas. So therefore, there's a huge dearth of high quality technical talent in the smaller cities or tier 2 and tier 3 cities. What happens because of this, that this creates a lot of vacuum in these cities, and the companies in tier 2 and tier 3 are not able to hire good talent. So we started a platform called CoDesign Labs, where we started giving access to really high quality talent to the small businesses or enterprises or corporates via our platform. After almost 1.5 years, we realized that because the nature of the platform of ours was, we were not a matchmaker, we were handling all the things for freelancers, we were giving them a lot of other kind of opportunities, we were making sure the payments was coming on time and all those kind of things. We realized that when we started analyzing, more than 50% of the freelancers on our platform were women. And when we started interviewing them, we realized that most of them were either young girls or young women who were not allowed by their families to move out and work. They were, young girls or young women who were not allowed by their families to move out and work. They were young girls or young women who were not allowed by their families to move out and work. They were young girls or young women who were not allowed by their families to move out and work. They were newly married women, or women who had to shift cities due to some or the other reason, maybe a family reason or maybe marriage, or maybe young moms. So we realized that the kind of model that we built was able to create a huge impact in terms of giving not just employment, but a lot of sustainability to all of these women. And, I'm happy to say that we last year were also awarded as top 5 diversity champions across the country. And my co-founder Neha was awarded to be one of the top 5 diversity champions. So what I believe as an entrepreneur, that which I always say, that social impact can come from anywhere, right? Even if you responsibly, so I say this term, which is responsible capitalism. So even if you do, even if you run a for-profit business with a very conscious approach towards creating an impact or creating a positive impact towards society, if you really make sure you're not exploiting people, I think a lot of social impact can come from anywhere. So it is not necessary that you really, get into that attire of a typical social entrepreneur, or go to a village, or go to, a place where, you have to prove that you're a social entrepreneur. Even technology can create a lot of social impact. That is one thing I believe. Another point that I want to kind of talk about. So I'll quickly, just to because because of lack of time, I know I'm going a little fast, but just to summarize this particular part before I jump onto the second part, that what I have for you, or how can you become a social entrepreneur, or what young people or students and entrepreneurs can learn from what is happening in the world right now and what is happening in the country right now. I think one, social impact, social entrepreneurship can come from anywhere. If you are an entrepreneur with an eye towards the opportunity, and if you're able to look at the right opportunity for a business, if you're solving a right problem, and if you are able to do your business in a very responsible way, and you have an opinion, you have an eye towards giving back to the society, I think you can definitely for sure create social impact. And at least for me, I see this particular scenario in that way. Okay, so now moving on to the second part, which is, as an entrepreneur, I see it as a land of opportunity. And why do I say so? Because the startup 101, the very basic fundamental behind building any company that we even that I mentor my startups around, is that you have to look for a problem. And if you look at India, we are a land of problems, whether it is pollution, whether it is women's safety, poverty, unemployment, corruption, healthcare infrastructure, agriculture and farmer distress, water, sanitation, and the list can go on. There are 100 such big sectoral problems that creates, because of lack of things which were not done on ground. I think there are huge sectoral problems that, if addressed in the right way, can both create money for the entrepreneur and of course create a lot of social impact and a lot of positive impact to the society. So therefore, India is a land of opportunity. There are huge sectors, whether you want to solve a problem in general, or whether by a product or by a sector, I think a lot can be done here. So let me give you a few quick examples. We have huge amount of successful social entrepreneurs, whether we talk about Anshu Gupta from Goonj, Arushi Batra from Robin Army, Sushmita Ghosh from Rangsutra, Ajita Shah from Frontier Markets, Karthik Narasalan Setti from Social Blood. There are 100 of such examples that I can quote in front of you, where I see that social entrepreneurs have done fantastic job on ground, both in making money and creating positive impact. So how to get started is another question. So a lot of kids, a lot of students come and ask that, hey, you have told us all of these things, you have motivated us enough. Now we know what social entrepreneurship is all about. Now we know that India is the land of opportunity. You have given us the right example, then we'll make notes and we'll do case study analysis and all these kind of things. But how do we get started, right? So I think a lot of support is available via there are social impact investors, there are social venture funds, as I said, social impact investors. So you have United Seed Fund, which is a hardcore social impact fund. You have social venture funds, which are willing to fund your social idea. There are dedicated social accelerators. There is a social impact business incubator. As I think I would give kudos to you, Professor Amit, that even your incubator is opening a dedicated vertical to start a social impact vertical. Even government grants, a lot of government competitions. Even Rajasthan government has something called as something for change or challenge for change, yes, where they give 1 crore grant to a startup if they're solving a on-ground problem around social entrepreneurship. And then, of course, you have grants, CSRs, competition by both public and private organizations, right? So I think, as I said, there's a lot which has to be done. This COVID time, the pandemic has just given us an opportunity to think back, reevaluate how things are, reevaluate what impact can be done. And I've seen fantastic businesses being opened up in these times, whether it is from the healthcare point of view or whether it is from the sanitization point of view. So I've seen great entrepreneurs picking up on these opportunities and working around the social ideas. So in the end, all I can say is you should begin a journey today. If you are a student, as Professor Amit clearly said, that if you're a student, I think you don't have any liabilities. There's a less risk of failure, and there's always a safety net. You can go back to your college prof or your college chief and tell, hey, I did this startup and can you help me in getting in a job? And I'm very sure that as a student entrepreneur, you will learn enough that you become really placement worthy. So I think it's a great time. You should definitely explore this. And I think it's a great occasion. Maybe we were talking on the birthday of a Nobel laureate, somebody who has proved that social entrepreneurship works. And of course, I think it's a fantastic topic and a fantastic thing being picked up by the Amity incubator and the Amity Innovation Cell. So that is all from my side. In the end, all I can say is if you need any support, any help, if you need any advice, if you're watching this today, if you are a social entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, if you need any help, support, go and follow me on Instagram. That is where I'm most active. You can DM me. I mentor a lot of startups, a lot of student entrepreneurs. I do a lot of consulting projects with them. And if you need any help, any support, feel free to reach out to me. And that's it from my side. I think that is all from my side in terms of my presentation. I hope I was able to give you a bigger picture in terms of what you can do. And I also hope I was able to finish.
Thank you so much, Dilnawaz. It was a wonderful presentation. And in fact, a very practical oriented presentation where you actually talked about that what exactly, what are the need areas, where exactly students can look at. And most of these areas, I mean, these are all global issues and global problems. It's not the problem of one country or one region. Only maybe the degree might be different, or the need might be slightly different, somewhere slightly more and somewhere slightly less. But most of these problems are everywhere. And if you look at all the sustainable development goals also, you'll realize that all the SDGs are actually aiming at that. So in fact, if you look at those 17 SDGs, and we start working on any of those areas, we are actually solving all the problems of the world. And if we can build certain enterprises around those 17 SDGs, there is a lot that can be done. And in fact, during my IIM Ahmedabad days, I was very closely associated with Professor Gupta and Gyan, where they used to work with grassroots level innovations, and the kind of work that we used to see there done by people who are not even educated, people who are not technically for that matter qualified, but the kind of innovations and even some of these innovations have been picked up by big corporates now as very successful products. So we have seen startups in the area of solar lighting and the solar financing coming up, where it is very much possible that a person doesn't mind whether the electricity comes from the solar lamp or from the electricity connection. What matters to me is that how much I need to pay. And if we can design some microfinance models around that, where the cost is not a one-time cost, but on a monthly or a weekly or a daily basis, they can pay 2 rupees, 3 rupees, 4 rupees. And that's it, they get their supply of 1 lamp of electricity. Those are the areas where there are possibilities of creating a lot of small micro enterprises and as well as serve the society. So thank you so much.
In fact, just to add, sir, I think it was just a shortage of time, and I think 15 minutes, it's unjustified to kind of talk on social entrepreneurship in just 15 minutes because Gyan and the Honeybee Network and all those sort of things. I was thinking to put them also in the presentation and talk about grassroots innovation and how, there's an award by the president every year for grassroots innovation and how can that be commercialized. But I thought that would be too much to cover in like just 15 minutes. And that's why I had to rush through the entire thing. But I hope at least this will be a good kickstart for the students to at least, think from that point and begin and kick off their entrepreneurial journeys. And at least it's a good sensitization point. I'm sure when a proper technology business incubator starts speaking about social entrepreneurship, I think that is where the change starts happening. So I think very wisely picked topic. And yeah, thank you so much once again. Yeah, thank you.
Professor Kazmi, your remarks.
One thought that actually came to me was when you were introducing Dilnawaz, when the thoughts that I have is that I don't have hard evidence for this. This is just a gut feeling or maybe anecdotal or observation that the younger generation today, Dr. Amit, is much more socially conscious and much more socially aware than our generation. If I could include you, of course, you are younger than I might be. So I think this younger generation is much more socially aware and socially conscious and also socially committed, as I see from young people around me, including my own children. What I see is that they have a deeper sense. Possibly we were the products of the scarcity economy, and therefore we were more maybe obsessed with or maybe concerned with survival and things like that, rather than thinking about others. So this is my feeling. I think there would be many people among the 65 participants that we have today in this panel discussion. There might be many, many potential social entrepreneurs and social business people, So, I have a lot of hope from this generation.
Very true. In fact, when we did our first round of Ideathon, which was a competition to generate the initial ideas out of which we can identify certain startups, and I was so glad to see that there were around 300 ideas developed by students in a span of 1 week's notice, where we said, okay, we are doing this Ideathon, and we would shortlist and identify certain business ideas which you would like to incubate in our incubation center. And there were 300 amazing business ideas, and it was really tough task for us to see that which one to take up and which one to take up in the next stage. So yes, you are very right. This generation is conscious, they are capable, they are skilled, and the kind of access they have to technology and the way this technology can help to solve a lot of problems throughout the world. For example, we are doing this webinar, online conference or an online seminar. Now that same technology, when used with medicine or the healthcare, and certain experimentations have been there where it is very much possible just to have a mobile van associated with a chain of panel of experts and the doctors and sitting at remote places. And I'm sure as part of a social responsibility, I don't think any doctor would say, even if it is required to be done free of cost, they won't mind giving 15-20 minutes of their time in the entire day of their consulting time. And that's how where there is a possibility of developing a model, providing healthcare facilities, providing education facilities. Sir, we did a webinar with the school principals. I often conduct a training program on leadership and management skills for school principals. Every year I do 3-4 versions of that, and this time we did it online. And there was a big demand from these school principals and teachers that we would also like to adopt to online technology, online teaching and learning, because online teaching and learning is not only about technology. There has to be a proper training, but the fact is that none of us, for that matter, were trained specifically to teach or deliver these things online. So since we were following blended learning approach, it was easy for us and we were quick to adapt. But then for others, it might be difficult. And then again, there was an idea that there can be a startup on simply training these school teachers in very basic online teaching, learning technologies that they can use at their own level. And, these lectures can reach out to the larger audience and the masses, even in the villages and the tier 2 or tier 3 towns and cities. So there is definitely a lot of potential. I believe there were a lot of ideas that got generated, and I'm sure our students would have benefited a lot. Right? There are not many specific questions because that seems that the area is slightly new for them. They definitely have been thinking about startups. They've been thinking about becoming the next Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or the next Bill Gates. But probably we need to have more role models and more such social entrepreneurs in the spotlight where we can portray and tell them that there is a lot of great work which has been done by the peoples like of that Shruti that you talked about, or even your co-founder Dilnawaz, as you shared, in terms of reaching out to the women who are not actually part of the workforce, but you could connect with them with the help of technology and provide them a sustainable living or the job opportunity. So definitely, I believe there is a lot of food for thought, and they must be thinking in the direction of starting social businesses. In fact, as MET University Rajasthan, we are very much committed to the cause of social entrepreneurship and creating social businesses. Our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Aseem Chauhan, is very passionate about startups and innovations. And that's the reason he has started with this incubation center. Whenever he gets an opportunity to visit the campus, the first thing that he wants to see is that what kind of project work or what kind of innovation or what kind of models these students have developed, and I would like to see that. And that shows the passion and the commitment to serve the society and humanity in general. In fact, social entrepreneurship or a social business is a long journey. And I would like to end the session by quoting Robert Frost. Woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep, miles to go before I sleep. So there is a lot that can be done, and with the help and support of experts like you, Professor Kazmi and Dilnawaz, I'm sure we will be able to do something meaningful, concrete in terms of developing some student-led social startups and social businesses. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time. It was a very interesting session. I enjoyed thoroughly learning from the eminent experts that we had, and we look forward to have many more such sessions going forward. Thank you
so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.